All right, I got the thumbs up from Justin. So apparently we're good, we're ready to go. My name's Ed Pletner. I am the founder and CEO of Avertech. We're an ITAD provider based in Southern California, specifically San Diego. We are R2V3, ISO 14001, 45001, 9001, and now recently 27001 certified, as well as NAID AAA certified for data destruction. So we're excited to be here. We have a booth. Come by, say hello. We love coming to the show and connecting with ITADs, not just throughout the country, but throughout the world, and helping them in providing service in Southern California, as well as vice versa, partnering with ITADs who help us service our clientele throughout the country and throughout the world. So it's great to be here. It's great to share information with each other. Grab a few drinks if you can, and have some good conversation. I'll start it off right from the top and make sure and state the obvious. Myself and Mark did not coordinate our suit jackets today. This was entirely accidental, and they are not the same brand. We made sure to check. So in case everybody was wondering that we decided to go through the lengths to do so, we did not. So total coincidence. We're going to jump into today's session, which I'm actually really looking forward to hearing about. We have been doing a lot of this recently as far as a service provider ourselves relative to box programs and take-back programs, specifically, especially with all the amount of hybrid work that started taking place during the pandemic. There was a lot of people working from home, and even a greater need to have a robust box return program for a lot of our clientele. So I think there's going to be some great takeaways, and we'll definitely leave some time at the end for questions. I'm sure there should be some good feedback here. So I'm going to start it off by introducing our panelists here. We've got Sunil Chandna from BitRaiser, and we've got Mark Cooper from Quantum Lifecycle Partners. Kevin Dillon from ERI was not able to join us today, so it's just going to be the two gentlemen up here, and so we're looking forward to have a really good conversation and make sure we've got some great engagement. With that, why don't you each kind of introduce yourselves and give a little bit of background on yourselves here for the audience.
Thanks, Ed. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. My name is Mark Cooper. I'm the VP of Business Development at Quantum Lifecycle Partners. I've been in the business for about 12 years. It seems like about 25 years, but it's only been 12. My first role in the ITAD and e-waste space was operating what was basically an e-waste scrapyard. Pretty quickly, we grew into an ITAD business. We added trucks. We started doing pickups from businesses in the Toronto area. We added technicians. I was actually the first technician, so it's a wonder we survived. We added real technicians very quickly, and I learned the business from the ground up. Today, I am responsible for the upstream sales and business development team, which includes relationship managers and a customer success group that handle all of the interaction between our upstream suppliers and the Quantum organization. And I'm looking forward to a great session. Thanks, Ed.
Hi, my name is Sunil Chandna. Can you hear me? All right, perfect. I co-founded a company called Stellar almost 3 decades back. Our core competence is data recovery, which means losing data, not having backups. And what do? We make software products under the brand name Stellar Data Recovery, and also provide data recovery as a service. We have an India Development Center where we've got 400 folks, and also a European subsidiary in Netherlands from where we serve the European customers. About 10 years back, we also authored a product line called BitRaiser. BitRaiser is a media sanitization software product line to wipe out clean hard drives, laptops, Macs, servers, storage, mobile devices, and now we also have a solution for Apple Watch. What sets us apart is our fantastic customer service and ability to craft solutions that fit every customer's needs, and at a great price. We are size agnostic. We work with ITADs that do 10,000 devices a year and up to even 1 million devices a year. Here at the show, we're showcasing some special functionality on Apple Mac Erasure. That's the latest innovation. What used to take an hour now can be done in a matter of minutes with very, very little technical understanding, and also previewing the Apple Watch devices, erasure technique. We've been working in the remote data erasure space for a couple of years, so happy to be here and talk about that.
Great. All right, with that, let's get started. Each of you, what is your experience with a box return redeployment program?
So we've done some variation of box programs for a number of years, long before COVID. We called them courier projects. So FedEx, UPS, we're Canadian, so Canada Post, Purolator, as opposed to carriers who do FTL and LTL and white glove pickups. As COVID progressed in 2020 and 2021, more and more people were working from home, were working remotely. It was more difficult, it became increasingly difficult for IT departments to bring people back to the office, to get equipment consolidated, to do bulk pickup. So we went to work building a box program. As I mentioned, we are Canadian, and the Canadian market has some unique challenges that are specific to Canada and not so much an issue in the US, and it's about population density or lack thereof. So I like to compare Canada, which is 3.6 million square miles and has a population of 39 or 40 million, to California, which is, I think, 160,000 square miles and has a population of 39 or 40 million. So when people were working remotely, they were working really, really remotely. And even having a robust box program didn't solve every problem. And there were still occasions where we just could not get to certain places, or at least we couldn't get there in a cost-effective way.
We, being a software vendor for ITADs, our experience has been secondhand. So what we hear from our ITADs is what I'm sharing. The first thing is the need for remote data erasure triggered off after the Morgan Stanley settlement in 22. 120 million down, and then most of the corporations started panicking and wanted to shift to on-prem erasure. And that is when they also realized almost 1/3 of their endpoint devices are actually not in the periphery. They're lying in their home. Then what do they do? And that's when they started asking ITADs about, can you really secure the devices before you pick them back? And that's when we saw it triggering a lot in 23. And 24, it's really got amplified after the Change Healthcare breach. I don't know if you're following that, but Change Healthcare lost $1.6 billion in revenue, paid $22 million in ransom fee. Their CEO had to give a testimony to the Senate. And despite all that, today 1/3 of Americans have their PI information available in dark web because their production systems were compromised because of stolen passwords, possibly from a device that got compromised in transit. And that's what triggered a lot of demand for a chain of custody security needs, and the people wanted to kind of wipe devices before they left the chain of control, even for the remote IT workforce employees. And yeah, so we're seeing more and more corporate customers directly asking us for this technical need, and then usually it's kind of implemented through a managed service provider or an ITAD.
And you had something to add, Mark?
So in terms of products and categories and different packaging options, we've kept it intentionally simple. We have 3 sizes: small, medium, large. A small package can accommodate 1 or 2 cell phones and cables and chargers. A medium package can accommodate maybe 2 laptops and accessories, and then our large box is 16 by 16 by 16, so you could fit a dozen tablets or 6 or 8 laptops with bubble wrap. You could even fit a small desktop printer, a monitor in there. It goes without saying, we didn't launch a box program to bring in lots of monitors and printers. We did it in the hopes of generating some additional volume in the laptop, smartphone, and tablet categories. And at the end of the day, we really did it just to provide a complete service to our customers and to solve the issue of we've got one thing or 2 things in some far-flung location, and we need to make sure they're handled properly. So that's why we did it. And so far, okay.
Okay, well, Mark, this question then is for you. What are some positive and negative experiences you've had in the box program?
I'll actually start with a negative. When we officially launched, and the program is called Quantum Quick Ship, quickship.quantumlifecycle.com if you want to check it out. Our very first actual order, UPS lost the package. It was a shake your head, kind of laugh and throw your hands in the air type moment where it was bound to happen at some point. We didn't think it would happen on the first package. I don't know exactly what we did to handle it with the customer, but it was an organization based in Australia who has employees across the world. They had somebody in Canada, in British Columbia, which is the far west coast. I think it was actually Victoria, which is an island, so it's particularly difficult to do pickups there, which is why a courier program or a box program is so effective. But the same company came back and placed a couple other orders for other employees. So we took care of them, and service is obviously job one, not just in box programs, but for all ITADs and e-waste recyclers. So on the positive side, it's given us the ability to cut out a ton of time and energy and involvement from our customer success team in creating 1Z lots, 2Z lots for bringing back a couple items at a time or one item at a time. And there's a cost associated with it that we actually have the ability to bypass by providing like a unique code where if a company wants to do multiple, we give them the unique code, they use it for all of their orders, and then we can build them on the back end. So it solves a lot of problems that way, and we're still ramping up. Like, we're not generating tons of volume through this program, but I'd say every week we get a dozen inquiries that are suitable for our Quick Ship program.
Okay, great. And obviously data is a big issue when it comes to these box return programs and redeployment as well. So Sunil, why don't you speak to us how BitRaiser is implemented into the process of these programs?
Yeah. So first thing, packages do get lost, right, Mark? So they do. And you don't want to risk losing one device or 10 and then put the company, your customer, in trouble. What BitRaiser or any professional data erasure software allows you to do is, through the customer's IT service management platform, you can identify and select the devices that you want to wipe. They could be 50 or 200 or 500 devices. And once you select them, you can push the BitRaiser software package down to every endpoint device that is selected. In a matter of minutes, all these computers now have the BitRaiser package. And the moment the download is completed, the step 2 takes off, which is BitRaiser runs and modifies the computer so that when the next restart happens, it will only boot into the BitRaiser environment and not the Windows operating system. That's the second change. And the third step that happens is it automatically forces a restart. So what happens is the computers, all these selected computers restart into BitRaiser environment, and all a user has to do is give access to the local internet, and the wiping starts. And once the wiping is completed, the audit trails are pushed into the cloud environment, And then from there, through an API integration, the ITAD can have access to the certificate of destruction in their ERP portal. And then they can decide whether they want to give a real-time report out to their end customer or combine them in a package. So once this process is complete, it will look very complicated, but you can wipe several hundred devices in a matter of an hour, provided the remote worker is there to assist you, just to put the internet access code. You can wipe hundreds of devices together, and a big project can be completed across hundreds of zip codes in a single day. And then the next step is to kind of work with your logistics partner and put them in the boxes and bring them back to your facility. That's how it goes.
Great. This question is for the both of you. What are some client programs that you interact with regularly in your experience with these box return programs? Go ahead, you can start, Mark.
Okay, I'll go first. So with our box program specifically, we haven't, with our quick ship program, we haven't interacted with any client platforms. It's sort of done on an ad hoc, one-off, as-needed basis. With our larger corporate customers who go through our legacy courier program or courier project, we've done a number of API build-outs. We've done some ServiceNow integrations. And we actually, I was talking to a colleague earlier, and we have an ongoing project, 300 remote locations for a retailer across, well, they're global now, but they're originally in Canada, Canadian company. And we've used our legacy program, which integrates with a carrier aggregator that gives us the best rates between FedEx and UPS and Canada Post, and generates the labels. And we get inquiries on an ongoing basis that have employees across the country that they just need something quick and easy, and that's when we refer them to our quick ship. We give them that unique code. They process the order. They don't have to pay out of pocket. Their devices get picked up, and they come back to us.
Our customers are ITAs, and they work with the corporations, and that's where the complexity is, because there's just not ServiceNow. There's Avanti, there's Helix, there's ManageEngine, there's Jira, tons of them. So it can be quite overwhelming. But we've seen some of our ITAD customers work and collaborate with the infrastructure service providers, the MSPs, and they kind of help them out in managing the device erasure part of it, because sometimes you feel a bit overwhelmed when you see a new interface of a new platform and your tech may not be able to work with it. But just a phone call and the collaboration really triggers off. And that's how you can run projects across different platforms with different customers.
Okay, great. This question is for Mark. Mark, which client personnel do you typically interact with in your box return programs?
Great question. The answer is really all kinds. We're dealing with, we do quite a bit of redeployment work. Most of the redeployment work we do is from corporate offices or corporate branches, and we're typically sending in carriers to do pickups in the traditional sense. Through our quick ship box program, we're dealing with small, medium businesses, mom and pop type organizations. We're dealing with larger companies that have locations in remote parts of the country, but they just need something quick and easy. I think, they're either redeploying devices. An employee needs a device upgrade, so they either ship a new one. In some cases, we hold inventory for those customers. We ship out the new device. They ship back the old device in the same box, and then we can refurbish, wipe, redeploy the original device, or we can recycle it, or we can remarket it, or what have you, depending on the scope of the arrangement. We're actually starting to see more traction with consumers and like residential customers who are either environmentally minded or have data security concerns and would rather pay whatever it is, $49 or $79, and know that their device is going to be processed by a reputable certified company, as opposed to just finding a local drop-off and having no traceability whatsoever and being concerned about where that device is actually going to go and what's going to happen to it. So yes, it's true, people don't like to spend money on these sorts of things, but there are more and more people out there that are willing to pay for that peace of mind, and we expect that market to grow.
Great. Sunil, how can ITADS offer remote data erasure to help mitigate data breaches in these programs?
The first thing that I would want all of us to know is that it looks like companies trying to bring back people and they'll be successful. Forbes did a study and kind of totally disagrees. In 25, the forecasted number of remote workers is now expected to be 35 million in US alone. So you're going to continue to have to deal with remote workforce and the remote IT assets and take care of them. Just to give you a simple example of, let's say, a healthcare company operating out of California, and if it's public, it already has to do a SOX compliance, a HIPAA compliance, has to deal with CCPA. One package getting compromised can sometimes be a gateway to a bigger data piece, and that can bring an organization to a standstill. So as they say, nip it in the bud, before it can become accessible to anybody, wipe them off. And remote data erasure technology helps you meet that. There have been some attempts in looking at physical destruction methods, but they're more difficult and very painful, You can't wheel in a truck to people's homes, and it's almost not doable. And also there are additional pressures of ESG, The companies have to look more sustainable, reduce their Scope 3 emissions, and erasure helps them naturally, to reduce the footprint, and the reuse industry thrives. Technology exists, and now it's also acceptable. We've had new standards on data erasure like the IEEE 2883, and it's completely safe and doable. And how technologies are organized is the moment the wipe is complete, you have an immediate availability of certificate of destruction. It's automated, it's algorithmic, and it's kind of tamper-proof, so it's more secure and more safer, mitigating any data breach risks and brings data security comfort to your customers.
Okay, great. This question is for the both of you. How have your organizations overcome any unique challenges that you have faced? And if you can give us an example and kind of how you came up with a solution for that, that'd be great.
I'll go first. So, we had a recent, this is an odd one, and it's specific to box programs. We had a customer recently who, they reached out, they had a list of employees spread out across the country. They all had 1 or 2 devices that needed to be upgraded. We quoted it. We provided a scope of work, and in the 11th hour they said, oh, you know what, there are privacy concerns over releasing employee addresses to you. So we said, well, how do you expect us to ship them packaging or devices if we don't have their address? And they never got back to us. So they're still figuring that one out. It's a bit of an oddball. There's, of course, lost packages. There was a big concern when we launched Quick Ship around making sure that it was self-explanatory in terms of how to package the equipment to send it back to us, including strips of tape in the box so that they could seal the box back up, making sure there's a label window to put the shipping label in, all sorts of things. People can usually pull off just about anything, but they can also screw up a lot of things. So we tried to make it as self-explanatory as possible. We included videos on our website of the appropriate way to package and label boxes. And so far, we've alleviated most of the challenges, and what's come back to us has typically been received like within a reasonable time frame, packaged as expected, and we've been able to process it and send them either their certificates of recycling or their data security certificate if they opted for the enhanced option. Not specific to box programs, but we don't struggle with reporting, but reporting can be a struggle because what we call a category, another company or customer calls a product type, and what we call a manufacturer, they call a brand, and what we call an equipment ID, they call an asset ID. So our system allows us to customize reports 1,000 times over so that they perfectly match the template that our customers are expecting to either upload into their system. And as a Canadian ITAD service provider, we do a lot of work for US-based and globally based ITAD companies, and we have the same challenges with them, and we always figure out a way to make it work.
Great. Sunil?
I remember a couple of cases, one where ITAD reported end user going really paranoid when he saw this computer booting into a new space, and it looked like there was a communication issue, probably from the internal IT, that he just would not cooperate connecting the computer to the internet because he thought he was kind of being part of a ransomware incident or something like that, because he said, what's happening to the computer? So sometimes I think communication is a problem. And also another incident when an employee went rogue, while the process was underway. So yeah, I really don't know how these were handled, settled, but yeah, I remember these two cases.
Okay, great. Mark, what are some recent and future trends that you've seen and plan to see in the future relative to whether it be device, legislation, et cetera?
Yeah, great question, and it actually kind of is a continuation of the challenge question. And our biggest challenge and the biggest trend now is data security, locked devices, and dealing with devices that are locked down through FMIP or some device enrollment program or a BIOS locks. And dealing with our larger corporate customers, like we address these issues in advance, and it doesn't mean that they're all automatically removed or released and easy to process, but at least it's been the topic has been addressed, and it's known, and it will come up during the process flow when we receive the assets. In the box program, it's particularly challenging because we, by design, kept our website simple. We don't talk about the nuances of the differences between recycling and reuse and remarketing and resource recovery and parts harvest and scrap and everything like that. We just say, we handle your devices in the best way possible. We make sure your data is protected, and we make sure that it's recycled properly according to all the environmental regulations. So at the end of the day, it's continuing to have these battles. We've acknowledged that when we get one item at a time or two items at a time, we're not going back to single customers to ask for passwords. We're just either parts harvesting or scrapping them and moving on. And at times, these locks prevent us from actually doing the data erasure, so we just have to physically destroy the device altogether, which is unfortunate, but it happens. And I think, as Sunil mentioned, with remote erasure, I think it's an amazing opportunity to integrate your service into potentially a box program, because the whole concept of these device security measures is to have them enabled when you let go of the device, when the device is no longer in your possession. So it can be a sensitive conversation to say, you're about to let these out of your possession. You need to erase. You need to remove those. You need to remove those locks and those security features beforehand. If I was an IT director, I would be apprehensive about that. I'd want the erasure done first. So,
great. Sunil, what are the chain of custody risks involved in recalling IT assets?
Usually, the package getting lost and becomes more complex when it goes into the wrong hands. Again, the problem is much more simpler if you're looking at local data. But if it's a device that belongs to a senior resource, many of us, and till recent past, even I, on the desktop would save a file which would say my passwords. And with that file, you have access to sometimes the most important production systems of the organization. And Yeah, I mean, if imagine a threat actor has access to your mission-critical servers, you're a healthcare company or a fintech company, he can really get all your business data and put your organization to a bad repute. So big dramatic risk, and sometimes result in organizations shutting down just one device, because not the data in the device, but the information in the device that gets access to the complete organization. So it can be pretty disastrous.
Okay, great. And for both of you, we'll wrap up with what are the pillars of implementing and maintaining a successful box return program? We'll start with you, Mark.
So, if you're planning to launch a like customer-facing, cloud-based box program, what we did was we kept it simple, and we acknowledged the fact that it wasn't going to work for every single application. But if you had basic needs involving the disposal of a single device or a handful of devices from a remote location, we think we check all the boxes. We believe we check all the boxes. So keep it simple. At the same time, for corporate customers in bigger volume, you do need to have the ability to do batch uploads and integrate with courier platforms and generate waybills and have them automatically emailed to customers, and limit the amount of manual intervention that's required for each order and each package. That would be my advice. Just keep it simple. Don't overthink it. And we also we didn't launch this thinking it was going to be a huge driver of volume or revenue or margin. We just wanted to be able to provide the solutions that our customers needed, wherever they needed them, in whatever way, shape, or form they needed or wanted them.
I think the single most important pillar for a remote asset take back is data security. If you don't have a strong data security implementation integrated into your device take back program, I think the customer is going to remain tentative and not really do too much transactions on it. I understand it may not be a large part of the transaction, but sometimes you build very good relationships because you have a specific advantage that others can't deliver. So I would say it's important to invest in this function, because this can be a unique differentiator to your business.
Okay, great. Those are our questions, all kind of like wrap in conclusion. I think as a ITAD service provider, a box program and being able to implement and provide a box program to your clientele is extremely important, because it gets you stickier with your clients, right? And so we're always looking as ITAD providers not just to be the junk hauler and the data destruction provider. You want to be able to provide additional services that bring value to your customer. And like Mark was saying, maybe from a volume standpoint, this isn't something that becomes a significant volume driver, but from an important standpoint, it again kind of gets you in with your client and gets you, again, that word stickier with them, provides more value, and really shows your worth to your client. And the more of these type of programs that you can present and provide to your clientele, the better chance you have of not only keeping your clients, but also gaining new clientele, because sometimes, as probably many of you know as ITAD service providers, it's not just the straightforward kind of way in the door. It's that, side step in the door to kind of say, hey, here's an opportunity to get in with a client that maybe isn't the easy way, but you can show your value that way and eventually be a valued service provider. So great answers. Thanks for all the information, guys. And now we will open it up to the audience. Hopefully some of you have some questions, and I will bring a mic, I think, to you if I can. Or actually, yeah, I'll give it to you. And Sean, right, if I recall.
Oh, yes, that's
Yes.
true. So I'm Sean Stockman with Return Center, which is a platform where we provide a box program and have for 18 years. And we do that for ITADs. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you ensure the boxes actually come back, where we send out thousands of boxes, and depending on whether the situation is an employee offboarding, where they're not so happy about having to return something, versus an ongoing employee who's kind of mandated to return it, how do you ensure, what processes do you have in place to try to encourage them to do the right thing?
Yeah, great question. The short answer is you really can't ensure that they send back the box. We, through QuickShip, we have a whole bunch of automated email reminders that go out at, I think, upon the date of delivery, 2 days after delivery, 3 days after that, a week after that, and so on. The reality is, through our QuickShip program, they've paid for the service up front. If they never send us the device, we've charged them essentially for two a ship out and a ship back, and we've only incurred the one cost, and it's the lower of the two costs because it was an empty package. So we also follow up manually, and if there's, if it's like a legacy courier program, like we reach out to the IT departments and say, can you please chase your end users? But they don't always come back. In fact, they almost never all come back.
So the best answer to that question I think I heard is, as an ITAD provider, we really don't have any power in that situation. But as an employer, there was an IT asset manager who I had heard they'd put in their onboarding process that they had a requirement that I think there was a financial aspect where if somebody didn't return their devices back, that it was taken out of their paycheck. From a legality standpoint, I don't know. I can't speak to that from an HR standpoint, but it was something they had implemented, and maybe it might be a suggestion that you could provide to your client to say, hey, maybe there's got to be a stick, so to speak, in the beginning in the onboarding process to help alleviate any of those issues. But yeah, I mean, to speak to your concern as an ITAD provider, I think you're kind of limited in what you can do in that process, except work with the client and provide a solution. Anybody else? Questions? Comments? Example? Steve, sure.
Yeah. Hello. Just curious, on your program, is it all? Is it? You mentioned keeping it simple. Is it all dumbed down where you're sending out the box or sending it back? There's no just one way, like just a shipping label to your end user, and they're just boxing it themselves and sending it in?
Great question. We do have a fourth option. It's the DIY option, where you place the order. It generates a lot number in our system. It generates a one-way shipping label from the customer to us. They package the stuff up. They send it to us. There's, of course, a risk that they pack like the most massive box that weighs 200 pounds, and we're now on the hook for it. We only charge them X, and it costs us 3X. But I guess there's volume to be received, so maybe it offsets the cost. So far, it hasn't happened. The biggest box we've received is our 16 by 16 by 16, and but yeah, that is our fourth option. We do have that.
Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? We provide a dual monitor package, dual monitor with laptop and peripherals package to clientele. We designed it ourselves with some input, and seems to work pretty well, but I think there's still a lot of room for innovation and just room for packaging innovation within the industry in general. And I think the monitors are kind of a really big component if you actually do have a client who is still looking to bring these back in and to redeploy them, or wants to be responsible from an ESG perspective of bringing back in monitors. There's a big logistics challenge with those, and I think the more solutions that are provided for that, I think the more success clients or the more success providers will have. I think there's still a big opportunity there. Anybody else?
I'm sorry, there was one question for Sunil.
Sure.
So do you provide like just consumer applications to go to your website or download a data destruction package, or is it always through your partners?
Yes, the software is available for anyone and everyone. Usually It happens in the risk business that corporations never want to do it themselves. They always want to delegate the risk down. It will be either to a service provider, an MSP, or an ITAD, and that's how they feel safe. They, of course, want to be sometimes party to selecting a product to see whether the product is test approved, it has those certifications. But yeah, so it's technically, we do have many corporations who use our data eraser product line and do erase it themselves. But I would say in terms of volumes, majority is consumed by service providers. That's how it goes.
Great. Anybody else? Yep. Oh, we got a question right here. Saba, if I'm not.
Hi, Chava. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm from TSG Meridian, German multinational IT leasing company, and we have 1 million assets coming back from leasing. And you know, as a lessor, I think you mentioned the topic with the log devices, right? So I think you guys in the IT business have the same issues. You mentioned that you go back to the customer, emphasizing and training them, and so on. What's your experience, and do you have any results of that emphasizing about the log devices?
Sorry, was the question, what are the results of our experience in going back to the customer to get them to send the stuff?
Is it getting better?
Yeah, it's most of the time they send the stuff. Most of the time they send the stuff. I don't have the numbers, but you know, I'd say over 90% of the packages that go out come back full. Does that answer the question?
No, my question is the log devices, right? So.
Oh, the log devices.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't go back to customers through quick ship for lock devices. We just process them as is. Through our conventional channels, we always go back to the customer, and it's dependent on, we deal with a lot of end users, but we also deal with a lot of logistics companies and other ITADs, so there's like multiple degrees of separation between the actual end user who controls that device or their third-party contractor who controls the device and us. So our success rate is probably in the 75% range, but I can tell you the 25% that we have to scrap really hurt. They really hurt. And it's usually the Apple devices, higher end devices that have these locks that we can't resolve, and yeah, it sucks when we have to scrap them or parts harvest them. It sucks for everybody.
Sorry, I didn't mean to overspeak. Yeah, it's a great question. The iCloud lock devices is a challenge. I think having, from a process perspective, maybe a quarantine area. That's something that we've implemented, where we kind of quarantine the devices and try and make a best effort to work with the client on being able to unlock those devices. Sometimes it's just a matter of time and communication. And if you have enough time and communication and the right communication with the right people at an organization, you can actually get those devices unlocked. But if you're just at volume processing through, it's really tough to be able to handle that. But I think there's a lot of opportunity still relative to implementing the right processes to properly handle that type of material, especially on the iCloud locked device side. So great. We got another question over here. We could pass the mic.
Hey there, thank you for a great panel. I was wondering about the proportion of your take-back programs that are existing businesses that are coming to you to service their remote workforce versus inbound inquiries. And for those inbound inquiries, where do you see demand coming from people looking to kind of get a box program implemented?
Great question. The users of the Quantum Quick Ship program, it's almost all like organically generated leads. Web form submissions, calls, emails to info@quantumlifecycle.com. Hey, I've got this one item and I live here or I work here, can you handle it? And we refer them. Our existing customer base is primarily large corporates, and so we're still working within our conventional courier project framework for those, and we're not using the Quick Ship platform as much as I would like, but we're getting there slowly.
Great. Yeah, great question, great answer. I think that'll do it for us. Yeah, we're right up against our time. So I want to thank everybody, thank our panelists, and thank the audience for the questions. Once again, have a great show, and appreciate your time, everybody.